Hello, everybody. Welcome to America Unhinged. I am Francesca Fiorentini.
And I'm Wajahat, and this is the show that tracks the first 100 days of Trump's second administration, which we can now refer to as Trump's authoritarian regime. And Francesca, we are on day 72 of this ongoing hellscape filled with constitutional crises.
Yes, it's as cruel as it is stupid. It gets crueler and stupider by the day. And we are here bringing it all to you. We've got a lot to cover today. We've got an extra long show today for everybody who's like, why isn't this show longer? Well, it is because we're going to be tracking the Wisconsin Supreme Court election. Again, polls are closing very, very shortly. And this is another race that Elon Musk is trying to buy to the tune of $20 million, the most ever spent in a Supreme Court race, I believe. We're going to talk to Ari Berman all about this and what it means, but also we're going to talk to just someone who's really trying to push the hope message, okay? Something different, a sort of ray of light in the midst of this darkness, and that is mayoral candidate for New York, Zohran Mamdani, who's going to be joining us to talk all about what his vision is for New York, for working New Yorkers, and also how to kick Cuomo finally to the curb, to say nothing of Eric Adams, who I believe is currently being held hostage by Tom Homan of...
I think he's eating some Turkish delights, and I think Cuomo is the herpes of New York. No offense to herpes.
Oh boy, and half of that herpes, Cuomo's probably responsible for. But
Allegedly.
Also, make sure you're liking and sharing the stream right now, guys. If you just put a little like, just thumbs up it, share the stream, let people know what you're watching on a Tuesday evening. Click the little bell over there so you know whenever we're going live, and make sure you're subscribed to Zeteo on YouTube, but also Zeteo.com for all of the incredible reporting that everyone has been doing over there. The incredible team that Mehdi Hassan has assembled in this year now since Zeteo has been around.
And in French, I was supposed to do that, but Francesca came in with the assist because I used my moan to do the herpes joke, but I don't apologize.
No, I just felt like it was fine. Like you know, we just keep it rolling. And speaking of keeping it rolling, let's talk about her, because I feel like Attorney General Pam Bondi, really had her limelight stolen from her by her own dumbass administration. Because remember, she was like, we need terrorist charges for anyone going after Tesla. Don't worry, we'll get to those terrorism charges. And then the Signalgate stuff broke and her limelight was stolen. And so that sucks. So she's trying to be back out on top, everybody. And she is announcing that the DOJ is going to be seeking the death penalty for Luigi Mangioni. That is right. The world's hottest alleged assassin, who is accused of killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Why does he not take a bad photo? Why? Why are his arms like that? Why does he make a sweater look good? All right, I'm done.
Francesca, we got Francesca's thirst out in the rehearsal. So this is
never ending.
It's a never ending thirst trap for Francesca.
Never quenched. Okay, my paisan. He has obviously pled not guilty to both murder and terrorism charges. Remember, there is an added charge of terrorism. This case is being adjudicated in New York, so I'm assuming these are additional, or basically what the DOJ is seeking, to put their thumb on the scale in all of this. Just as obviously a reminder, this is sort of what Pam Bondi laid out. Again, she said, Luigi Mangioni's murder of Brian Thompson, an innocent man and father of two young children, was a premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. After careful consideration, I have directed federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case as we carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. That's why we let out 1,500 insurrectionists, some of whom have already been rearrested for some other violent stuff that they've committed after doing the coup. Again, so there are federal charges. I'm not saying there aren't federal charges, but the idea that she is suggesting the death penalty over, let's say, a long or lifetime prison sentence is notable. It is also notable that according to intelligence reports, in fact, just American intelligence reports broadly, specifically from this regional intelligence center out of Connecticut, there is a correlation between
Mm.
the murder of the United Healthcare CEO and Americans' general dissatisfaction. In fact, anger, wrath, rage, exasperation at a privatized health insurance industry that increasingly does not actually service them or help them get better. Instead, it bankrupts us and it makes us destitute. And so this is according to the awesome prospect, the American Prospect, that everyone should check out. But here we are. 1 week after the killing of United Healthcare executive Brian Thompson, an intelligence report compiled by a regional intelligence center made an admission that is shocking in its simplicity. Rising healthcare costs are correlated to threats against executives and civil unrest. The 2-page document obtained by the Prospect and compiled by Connecticut Regional Intelligence Center, one of dozens of fusion centers across the country that communicate intelligence between federal agencies and state law enforcement, is uncharacteristically forthright in its language and assessment of that healthcare costs lead to instability, and that the reaction to suspect Luigi Mangioni's alleged action was largely positive.
Yep.
That is
Majority of Americans across the board, across ethnicities, have, for better or worse, depending on your perspective, supported Luigi with free Luigi signs and, I must admit, hilarious memes that have propped up where people, I don't know if you've seen it, Francesca, were like, Luigi couldn't have shot him. He was with me at the comic book store in Ohio.
amazing. I just think it's important to remember that I believe it's in the 60s, but I don't want to sort of speak out of turn. But something like 60 something percent of Americans feel that this murder was justified.
Mm,
That's more than the people who voted for Donald Trump. Like
mm,
it's just, call it what it is. It surprised even me, but the idea that people were going to be glib about what is clearly a murder, again, alleged, but it just tells you everyone has their own struggle with the healthcare insurance industry. Everyone has been, again, maimed, robbed, denied coverage,
yep.
and perhaps living with chronic pain, paying through the nose for their premiums or for their meds. I mean, it affects every single one of us, and we've acted like this country has done anything at all to make it better since, yes, the 2009, incredible landmark Affordable Care Act. But, I did a special on this for MSNBC, specifically on Obamacare and whether it has delivered. And honestly, it hasn't. It's incredibly expensive. It's still inaccessible. And millions of Americans still go without health insurance every single year, to say nothing of those who have health insurance and are, again, denied their claims, paying through the nose. And eventually, if God forbid, some sort of diagnosis, they have to, declare bankruptcy because they cannot pay it or go without. I know people who have taken their lives. I'm just putting it out there. This
Yeah.
is a morbid industry. So the fact that this act of violence, look, this entire industry wages acts of violence on everyday people every single day. We just don't happen to be healthcare executives.
And
I
that's
want
And
Mhm.
that's the point, right? We don't happen to be healthcare executives. We don't have to be billionaires. We don't have to happen to be millionaires. We don't happen to be the 1%. We're just people in America, the most powerful, wealthy country on earth, struggling to buy insulin, which is cheap and affordable everywhere else, but is the most expensive in America, to the point where people have to ration their insulin just to survive in the United States of America. And speaking about United Healthcare, what we know is they have denied about 30% of their claims, more so than any other company, based upon an AI, right? An AI, artificial intelligence type of code that just straight up like denies all these Americans, and people are bankrupt because they can't afford medicine, they can't afford to pay back treatment they need to survive. People don't have healthcare as a right in this country. You got to work for your healthcare. So all those thousands of federal employees, folks, in addition to losing their jobs, losing their income, we've talked about this on the show, many of them don't have access to healthcare. Just good luck, pray, and
Yes.
inshallah, maybe Allah will help you. And speaking about that, the fact that there's a completely unfair tilt that favors the wealthy, the dossier also has this juicy excerpt. It adds, quote, the public may view the ensuing manhunt and subsequent arrest of Mangioni as NYPD and largely policing as a whole as a tool that is willing to expend massive resources to protect the wealthy, while the average citizen is left to their own means for personal security. And speaking about protecting the wealthy, why would people think that? Well, let me give you this clip from Pam Bondi.
I've made it clear, if you take part in the wave of domestic terrorism against Tesla properties, we will find you, arrest you, and put you behind bars. Today, I'm proud to announce that the Department of Justice has unsealed federal charges against another Tesla attacker. We've charged Cooper Frederick in the firebombing of a Tesla dealership that occurred on March 7th in Loveland, Colorado. All of these cases are a serious threat to public safety. Therefore, there will be no negotiating. We are seeking 20 years in prison. Let this be a warning. You can run, but you cannot hide. Justice is coming.
Aaron, that comment is hilarious, by the way. I want to give it respect. Aaron Pimentel said this looks like a daytime ad for a local law firm. For those of us who are old enough to watch
she didn't do
TV,
like a dramatic turn. Justice
on point.
Is coming.
I just went to the local TV station and filmed my ad for Tesla prosecutions. Look, Francesca.
She's like on a billboard. Has your Tesla been harmed?
No, 20 years for firebombing a Tesla. 20 years. And yet the people who attacked police officers on January 6th, smeared poo-poo at the Capitol, broke into the Capitol, tried to overthrow a free and fair election, folks, are already pardoned, as Francesca mentioned, and a big little news nugget that got swept under the rug a couple of days ago because, 18 fires to our government and our democracy. Donald Trump is now open to compensating these violent insurrectionists. So if you wear a MAGA hat, you can commit a violent insurrection. Not only will you be pardoned and called a freedom fighter and a political prisoner, you might also get compensation. But if you vandalize, which is illegal, a Tesla vehicle, you will be called a domestic terrorist. If you are the 1% and literally use algorithms to deny Americans healthcare, which will, as Francesca said, kill people. Literally, people have died because they've been denied treatment, because they haven't gotten access to good healthcare, because they can't afford medication. As Francesca said, because of healthcare debt, which is one of the major reasons for debt in the United States of America. People are killing themselves. People are declaring bankruptcy. Marriages fall apart, right? Families and generations are ruined.
Yes.
That's fine. But oh boy, Luigi Mangioni, death sentence. You mess up a Tesla vehicle or a Cybertruck, considering they don't blow up themselves, domestic terrorist. But you can wear a MAGA hat and be part of the red shirts who commit a violent insurrection, and you'll be A-okay.
When I'm in a hurry and I know I need to speed a little bit on the road, I do carry a MAGA hat with me just in case I get pulled over.
Also, Francesca is white.
Yeah, I am half white, damn it. And I tell that to the police officer every damn time. I think we need to draw a through line through all of this, Waj, because I think we're also in a time where Palestine demonstrators, students are being rounded up and disappeared off the streets. That is not hyperbole. That is literally happening. Colleges and universities are falling in line. They are suspending and expelling students based off of smear campaigns generated by AI. But if you think to yourself, well, I don't speak out about Palestine, I am not at risk. Look at the two stories we just talked about. We're talking about Teslas, and we're talking about speaking out about healthcare. Now, in both of these instances, right, in the wake of the Luigi Mangioni, his actions and the murder of Brian Thompson, there was someone who called up their healthcare company and said, something angry. They were enraged after being on, at customer service, however long they probably held on, and said something like, the same should happen to you, in reference to this killing. Now, that is fully within this person's right to say something like that. Does this person have a plan to enact it? Does this person have a gun? All of these things. That person was then absolutely investigated, followed. I can't remember exactly what happened to them, but this is the idea that if you speak out against CEOs, if you say anything similar, you will also be trailed and followed. In Florida, just this week, a woman was given a $3,000 fine and hit with a felony because she put a piece of gum on a Tesla. So It's a piece of gum. It's an angry phone call to, your healthcare provider. All of these things are seen as dangerous speech, right? So it's not just Palestine. It is anyone who is speaking against the powerful, the corporations, anyone who's rightfully angry about all of this, even if it is as harmless as putting a piece of gum on a Tesla. So 20 years, look, we've always pursued anyone who burns down a dealership. This country is very punitive when it comes to private property. They always have been. People have given multi-year sentences for burning down dealerships, okay? Even when no one was harmed. That's fine. You can think that that's okay. They were labeled eco-terrorists and they continue to be labeled eco-terrorists. But 20 years is absolutely unprecedented.
It's mind-boggling. And to put that juxtaposition, put a pin to what you just said, a beautiful example is as we are going to pursue these Tesla protesters, these domestic terrorists, the most powerful, influential people on earth can keep exposing our military secrets and keep exposing our classified information and potentially threaten the security of our allies and our soldiers, because we just learned today from the ongoing chaos spilling from Signalgate that members of Donald Trump's administration, specifically his National Security Council, including White House National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, who doesn't know how Jeffrey Goldberg got sucked in to his Signal chat, his words, not mine. They have been conducting government business over personal Gmail accounts. Also, Michael Waltz's Venmo account was public. He didn't learn from Matt Gaetz, who, as we know, also kept his Venmo account public and gave $10,000 payments to the two women who were going to testify against him in the House committee. But with that being said, we're going after the really mean, really scary, really bad criminals. And I, of course, am talking about innocent gay barbers who happen to be brown-skinned. But hey, who cares about innocent gay barbers who are being tortured in El Salvador? Fox doesn't. This is a real clip, folks. Check it out.
I don't trust the El Salvadorian government to be making sure that they're not torturing people, that they're vetting them properly. They need to be vetted on this side.
Why do the Democrats always say this could happen?
It did happen. It didn't could
They're
happen.
torturing them?
Did you watch the video?
Torturing?
Yeah. Did you read the Time magazine?
Heads.
Time magazine was there when the gay barber from Venezuela who had a crown tattoo that said "Mom" was being processed coming into the El Salvadorian. Oh, am I boring you again? I'm sorry.
No, but you've been talking about this gay barber from El Salvador with some stupid tattoo for weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks, Jessica.
Come on.
It's just a gay barber.
He's not into you.
He's an innocent guy who got swept up in a deportation, and hopefully we get it figured out and straightened out.
Before we move on to the breaking news, that another horror story that came out just last night, Francesca, we got to spend a little bit of time on that clip. Your response to that clip, where Jessica Tarlov of Fox was talking about this barber, innocent barber here legally, who's Venezuelan, committed zero crimes, has a tattoo, is a gay barber, and is now being tortured in El Salvador because he was among the 3 plane loads full of brown immigrants who were sent without any due process to El Salvador, where our government is paying Bukele $6 million of your taxpayer dollars to torture innocent people without due process. And Fox said, just a gay barber.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, a judge ordered those planes to be turned around. I mean, it was illegal on so many levels, and they knew it was, and they continued to defy a court order and did it anyway. I mean, it's just incredible. It's like, what if he was like a macho barber, like a real straight barber? Like, he's so straight, he doesn't even like women. He's like gay, but like straight gay. You know what I'm saying? Like, then would we like try to release him? You know, like, and also stop talking about it for weeks. The fact that we've been talking about it for weeks is because he's not been released. There's no recourse. Waj, I'm reminded of the child separation in the first Trump administration, which was, oops, we did it, and we have no way of getting these people back, right?
And it's only been 2 weeks, and we talked about her emails for years, but her emails. Yeah. And today, Levitt said, Signalgate is over. It isn't. And also, this constitutional crisis and this violation of law and human rights and basic decency is not over because in addition to the barber and in addition to the coach, whom we know were sent among many others who were probably innocent, we found out last night, folks, that a Maryland father, all right, a husband, a dad, was one of the people who was sent. And for the first time ever, the Trump administration acknowledged that it was an error, that they had inadvertently deported the wrong man to El Salvador, a man who, by the way, was given withholding of removal because he had a legitimate fear of prosecution in his home country, which happened to be, wait for it, El Salvador. So they sent him back to the country that he tried to escape. And the quote was from ICE, "This removal was an error." The individual is Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran. He was one of the 3 completely full flights sent to El Salvador, where the Trump administration straight up kidnapped these brown immigrants without due process, and now they're being tortured, most likely in a prison run by the Bukele with the tune of $6 million of our dollars. He was sent on March 15th in a frantic flight. There was a legal fight over it. It's still brewing. Trump has invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 that he says gives him powers to mass deport these individuals, alleging that they're all members of violent Venezuelan gang. Unfortunately, this man is not. Abrego Garcia was deemed by an immigration judge in 2019 to be a likely member of the MS-13 gang, a decision Garcia sharply contested and that the government credited to information gleaned from a single confidential informant. But this is important. The court also agreed that he should not be deported to El Salvador, finding that his fear of being persecuted or tortured was credible. As a result, folks, for the past 5.5 years, Garcia has been released from custody and has been living in Maryland with his citizen wife and citizen child, a 5-year-old with disabilities. He was arrested by ICE on March 12th and sent to El Salvador on March 15th, where his wife recognized him in a video showing the shackled and shaven prisoners being arraigned by Salvadoran authorities. Now, when asked about it last night in a tweet, JD Vance straight up lied, folks. Vance said, "My comment is that according to the court document you apparently didn't read, he was a convicted MS-13 gang member with no legal right to be here. My further comment is that it's gross to get fired up about gang members getting deported while ignoring citizens they victimize. Except everything that he just said was BS, and maybe they should teach reading comprehension at Ivy League schools." We had regular folks on Twitter who actually, read the documents, Francesca, who called them out. And we also had Billy Binion, a reporter at Reason Magazine, who responded to JD Vance saying, "This is literally fake news. Vance didn't read the court documents." Here's what the documents actually say. Garcia is, quote, "not a convicted gang member. He's never been charged or convicted, Francesca, of any crime. Police accused him of being MS-13 after stopping him and 3 other men for allegedly loitering outside a Home Depot, where he says he had gone to apply for a job. It was his first and only time in state custody. That was 2019. Law enforcement separated the men and interrogated them about gang membership. They told Garcia he could leave if he gave them information, which he said he didn't have. One of the other men pointed the finger at Garcia and accused him of being affiliated with part of a gang that operates in New York, a city where he has never lived. That, and folks really listen to this, along with the fact that Garcia was wearing, quote, a Chicago Bulls hat and a hoodie, is the evidence law enforcement said showed he was in a gang. I'm going to repeat that. The fact that he was brown, the fact that one person without evidence said, oh yeah, he's part of a gang in a city he's never visited, and the fact that he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie was the evidence that allegedly showed he was in a gang. When his lawyer went to find the police report about the Home Depot incident, Garcia wasn't even named on it. And what about the subsequent gang evaluation? The investigator who authored it was suspended. 2019, Garcia won his case, granted protected status, released from custody. He has had no arrests since, and those are the facts. But the facts did not save him, the barber, the coach, the students, all these people charged and convicted of 0 crimes who happen to be brown at the wrong place at the wrong time and are now either in a detention center in Louisiana, like these college students, or suffering in a prison in El Salvador.
I mean, it is terrifying. And I just want to say that Vance doubled down and he continued the misinformation even after being corrected by this. He thought initially that it was a Biden thing. So then he corrected a little bit of something that he said on Twitter, but really he doubled down on it. This is after ICE itself called this an error. It's an error that he was picked up and deported. And Vance says, in 2019, an immigration judge determined the deported man was in fact a member of MS-13 gang. Lies. He had also multiple traffic violations for which he failed to appear. A real winner. Oh yeah, everyone who fails to appear in court for a traffic court deserves to be in a prison cell in El Salvador right now. It's telling that the entire American media is going to run a propaganda operation today, making you think an innocent, quote, father of three was apprehended by a gulag. Here are the relevant facts. The man is an illegal immigrant with no right to be in our country. 2, an immigration judge determined he was a member of the MS-13 gang. 3, because he's not a citizen, he doesn't get a full trial by peers. In other words, whatever due process he was entitled to, he received. Here's the game, Waj. Those are all lies. He is entitled to remain here because a judge said that if he returned to El Salvador, that he would face incredible amounts of violence from gangs themselves. Yep. And I think everyone needs to understand that when we sweep undocumented people up to deport them back to countries from which they fled, we are deporting them back into the arms of either a gang or their draconian, authoritarian, abusive government like Nayib Bukele's, right? And they are now in prison.
I mean, let's be blunt, Francesca. We're deporting them to a death sentence.
We're deporting them to a death sentence and to a prison where there are actual gang members, but also innocent people. Nayib Bukele has talked about sweeps. I mean, this is why Marco Rubio loves the guy. This is why the Trump administration loves El Salvador, because they don't ask questions. They simply arrest every, kid between the ages of 15 and a guy who's 35. It doesn't matter. You're in this area. We're taking you off the streets. And who knows when you're going to get out. In this prison specifically, those who are incarcerated, they cannot go outside. They cannot receive visitors, people. And also many of them have no idea when they're being released. So there is not a due process for these gang members or alleged gang members. Or these innocent folks. Do you understand what I'm saying? They are effectively disappeared. They are propaganda tools, like full stop. But the real thing, watch, and this is what I want to explain, and I think we know this, we talked about this. What if we find out and JD Vance finally admits, well, he wasn't in a gang. He was just here without papers. Yeah. Well, honestly, same thing, because everyone who's here without papers is a criminal. Stephen Miller said it. He said the game's up, the joke's on you. We actually don't distinguish between hardened criminals and gang members and just people who are fathers of three trying to live their lives, who happen to have a tattoo supporting people with autism. Nah, it doesn't matter. If you don't have papers, you deserve to be in a prison in El Salvador. Remember, they move the goalposts all the time and they're utterly bad faith.
And with that, I want to show you how the administration responded to this moral, ethical, legal travesty of justice, this outrage, this disgust. This is how they responded.
But a judge ordered that he should remain in this country. So are you saying that it is okay to ignore a judge's ruling if you don't like it?
Who does that judge work for?
He's an immigration
It was
judge.
an immigration judge who works for the Department of Justice at the direction of the Attorney General of the United States, whose name is Pam Bondi, who has committed to eradicating MS-13 from our nation's interior. And let me tell you why we've made this commitment. MS-13, may I remind each and every one of you, is a brutal and vicious gang.
There you have it. And speaking about one of these places that is targeted by ICE raids, New York City, which according to Morgan Wallen, the country singer, is no longer God's country. We have, folks, a young, up-and-coming, bright, progressive superstar, New York State Rep Zohran Mamdani, who is running to be New York's next mayor. Zohran, welcome, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, Francesca was super duper excited to have you here. I'm super excited as well, but I will defer to Francesca. She wanted the first crack at the question. I will be chivalrous.
No. I guess I've just been seeing you over the last few weeks, Zohran, since obviously the Trump administration has sicked ICE on the residents of New York. And, your actual current mayor, Eric Adams, seems to be in a blackmail scheme and directed by Tom Homan. You're out there, you're screaming at Tom Homan, as personally I believe he should be screamed at. I saw you supporting Tesla protesters as well, taking the mic. I mean, this is really a moment where I think, other politicians would be, sort of behind a podium. You're out there on the streets and taking it to power. Can you just talk about why?
Yeah, I think for too long in this country, we've put decorum over dignity. And what we see in this moment right now is a hunger for a different kind of politics, a politics that puts working people first. And between Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, New Yorkers are told that their two options with regards to Donald Trump is either collaboration or cowardice. And we are fighting in this race to show that, in fact, there is another way, and that way is one of conviction, of commitment, of clarity. And the stakes that we're speaking about, they are families being separated. They are the ripping apart of the fabric of our city. We had a New Yorker taken from the lobby of his apartment building, separated from his 8-month pregnant wife on the basis of no charge, but political expression. And that is something that Eric Adams has yet to call for Mahmoud Khalil's release. Andrew Cuomo took 72 hours to issue any statement before then walking it back 24 hours later, all while leaving New Yorkers in a state of confusion as to whether or not he believed Khalil should be at home, like anyone who enjoys the First Amendment should, or whether he is in agreement with Donald Trump's administration. And it's a question worth asking, because when it comes to Andrew Cuomo, he's received about $20,000 from Donald Trump associates and donors.
I love New York City. It's a home away from home. But New York City, unfortunately, has been painted by much of MAGA as this godless den of hedonism, right? Anything and everything that they fear allegedly comes from New York. And I know this is a pop culture question, but nonetheless, it reflects this viewpoint of New York. I'm sure you saw SNL, and I alluded to it. Morgan Wallen abruptly leaves the stage, country music star, and then tweets out getting on a plane, going back to God's country. And your response to that as a New Yorker? It was so overwhelming that it froze.
It was. You could see it. Like Zohran was like, he was thinking about it, and he's saved by the phrase.
I was so overwhelmed. I was struck. I was struck in a moment.
I didn't even hear that's what happened. I've been such a zero on it happens at SNL.
For those who don't know, what happened is over the weekend, SNL did a show, and it was the actress from Anora, Mikey Madison, as the host, and Morgan Wallen. Morgan Wallen is this country superstar, very controversial because, I don't know, just check him out. His history of
is he try that in a small town guy?
Yeah, uncouth behavior. And so for those who don't know, with SNL, the tradition is at the end, the host and the musical guests, they just stay, the credits roll, you shake everyone's hand. It was the first time I've ever seen in my life. Morgan Wallen, as the credits are rolling, literally leaves. He gets in front of the camera and leaves. And not only that, he gets on his private jet and he takes a photo of the jet and he goes, finally going back to God's country.
On his private jet. I love it. I mean, and I guess, and when Zohran comes back, he can explain this. But I, as someone who lived in New York for 7 years, like it is a working class. It is quite literally a working class city. You've been there, you visited. If you are listening to this, I hope you go. It does not sleep for a reason, because workers make New York work, whether they're making you, egg and cheese on a roll, whether they are operating the subways for you when you're coming home, at 3 a.m, whether or not they are working at public schools. The workers run New York. And the fact is, it's also a place with incredible wealth, it is a very unequal city, and has increasingly gotten so over the years. And I think these do-nothing Democrats and centrists like Andrew Cuomo, who under his watch oversaw basically a glad handing with Republicans in the state assembly, knowing that they were always going to prevent any real policies from breaking through that would benefit all New Yorkers. It was always Andrew Cuomo working with Republicans, and so even by the time COVID came around and people were like, oh, thank goodness, he's amazing. I'm a Cuomo sexual. He was, number one, covering up for the nursing home deaths where he told it was okay to go back to their nursing homes, even with COVID. And also had come off the back of, like, horrible policy.
Oh, Zohran, after you received inspiration from the angels, or I don't know, maybe from another place. I don't know if you went up or down. But your response, and by the way, we have a very smart community. They know about Morgan Wall and his history, but that offended me because it was not just an attack on New York, but anyone from the coast, right? I'm from California, to assume that we're these godless people, to assume that like we're these heathens. And the fact that he could so casually say it, and so many people run with it, that as Francesca was saying right before you came on, ignoring the fact that so many people in New York are middle class, working class, low income, go to church, go to mosques, right? That somehow we don't raise our children right, that somehow that we don't care about family values. This dismissive comment. That's my response. I want to ask your response.
No, I feel very similarly because I think it is constantly an attempt to paint New York City as if it is separate from the United States of America, when in fact our city represents the best of this country. And I'm so proud to be of our city and to understand that in fact so many of the same values that make people proud, whether it be wherever this country singer is from or in New York City, they are the same shared values. And yet it is easier to caricature people that you do not know than have to contend with the fact that you may have far more in common with them than you think. Because if you do, then it becomes far more difficult to justify the kind of cruelty that is being imparted, not just in rhetoric, but also in policy today from the Trump administration.
Zohran, your campaign is really cooking. This is a graphic of all the individual donors. You have maxed out fundraising for the most individual donors. What does that mean when you max out? You got to wait? You got to time out or something?
That means I'm telling people to stop sending me money.
Oh my God.
Are you like the anti-politician? What's wrong with you? Do your parents, does your immigrant community know what you're doing, Zohran?
They know. Look, it's bad enough you're asking strangers for money for politics, but if you know that you can't spend any of that money, then you have to tell people that they shouldn't send it to you. But it's funny, I made a video saying, stop sending me money, and it raised $10,000. And I was like, well, people didn't understand the point of this video. Please just volunteer.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say, what are you asking people to do instead?
Well, I'm asking them for their time because we're trying to do politics a little bit differently. And what that means is not just being smart and serious and strategic about fundraising, but also building the single largest volunteer operation of any municipal campaign in the history of this country. And we've already put together a team of volunteers that have knocked on more than 100,000 doors across New York City at this stage in the campaign, with more than 2 months left to Election Day. And we've done it with a team of volunteers that is expanding by more than 100, 200 people every single day. And it speaks to the level of excitement and belief and hunger for a politics that is fighting for something, as opposed to just in opposition to it or in fear from it, but instead with a belief of what life could be like.
Zohran, your campaign, as mentioned, has inspired this grassroots activism, individual donors, as Francesca just showed. You maxed out, but you're still going up against a political machine. And a lot of people who are outside of New York do not understand or appreciate how entrenched this machine is. And you're like a David versus Goliath. And speaking about Andrew Cuomo, he's back. I called him the herpes of New York. You don't have to. And these are the polls. Look, as of now, Cuomo has 39% and you have 15%. So someone looking at this right now, be like, Zohran, man, you sound great. You have the energy. I love what you're saying. It's too much. You can't take out this Goliath.
I understand where they're coming from because it's also hard to have hope in politics, whether in New York City or across this country. But I would just remind people that if you were to look at that poll, if it was commissioned on the day we announced this race, we would have been at less than 1%. And we've reached a point where many at that time were telling us was impossible. And we've reached that point with still more than 50% of New Yorkers not knowing who I am or what this campaign is fighting for. And the reason that gives me hope is that it means that this poll is more a reflection of name recognition than it is a reflection of who people want to support or believe in. And the issue for Andrew Cuomo is that 100% of New Yorkers know who he is. And there is actually a majority who do not want to vote for him. Whereas for us, there's still a lot of people that we have to introduce ourselves to. And that's why the fundraising and the volunteering means so much, because it means that we'll actually be able to give our own story to New Yorkers as opposed to have it be told for us.
Speaking of that story, I really loved a recent campaign video that you put out, and specifically how you address public safety, which again, sort of, is something that gets, overblown, the amount of crime in New York, and again, sort of plays into the histrionics around New York City. And I would argue that Eric Adams has played into this as well in his time as mayor. And here's what you had to say about real public safety. And this is just a small clip, and please expand.
I will create a Department of Community Safety, the DCS. This new agency will coordinate a whole-of-government approach to protect New Yorkers like never before. We will invest in citywide mental health outreach and crisis response, expand gun violence prevention programs, address hate, and tackle homelessness.
So you also then followed up by saying, cops are often used to stand in where social safety nets and city programs have failed. Can you just explain what you mean by that?
Yes, in the years that we've had as New Yorkers under the leadership or so-called leadership of Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, we have seen an attempt to task each and every failure of the social safety net as a new responsibility for the police, a responsibility that they are not trained for, that they are oftentimes not interested in actually fulfilling, because it is frankly impossible in addition to all that is already being expected. And what this campaign believes and is fighting for is that every New Yorker deserves to be safe. And safety as an outcome is more important than the discourse, the debate. It's actually the delivery of it that has to be paramount. And that's why this proposal for a Department of Community Safety, it's built around evidence-based strategies that have proven successful elsewhere in the country, whether in Eugene or in Denver or in Olympia, where we've seen an understanding of what it is that we need to do to respond to a mental health crisis, homelessness crisis, a gun violence epidemic, victim services, hate crimes. We have to actually pursue that which works, not just that which sounds good on TV. And that's the difference between our vision here and that of Andrew Cuomo's. And I'm really excited about informing New Yorkers that there is a path to resolve the anxiety they feel. And it's a path that is proven. It's not one that is actually the same tired tropes that we've heard year after year.
Zohran, you got to leave in a minute and a half. My producer told me, so I'm going to get you up. A final question. We're witnessing history as Senator Cory Booker just broke the filibuster record that was set by Strom Thurmond. Strom Thurmond was defending segregation, and he was against the Civil Rights Act of 1957. Today, Cory Booker took the stage to kind of show a different way forward, a different messaging for Democrats against Trump's authoritarian regime. Your response to what Cory Booker did, and also your advice to Democrats on how they should message to win over people's trust and excitement again.
It is heartening to see Democrats like Cory Booker fight back against the Trump administration, because there are too many within our own party that think the only option we have right now is surrender. And as Eric Adams has shown us, surrender does not win anything for the benefit of working class New Yorkers. In fact, all it's resulted in our city is the federal government taking $80 million out of city bank accounts. And to think that surrender is the only option is to think that the only time we can fight is at the midterms. But power is something that we have to contest every day, because it's not just technical control that gives Trump legitimacy. It's a sense of a mass popularity for these kinds of ideas. And we have to push back against them. And it's heartening to see Senator Booker do that in this kind of display. And to your question of, how should we be speaking? What are the mediums, perhaps? I think the most important thing is to stop lecturing and start listening. And when people feel as if they are being listened to, and then that what they are telling you is informing the policies that you are then putting forward, there can be the creation of an engagement once again with local politics, because what I've found is that too many people feel like there is no relevance because they don't see themselves in their lives and the policies that are putting in front of them. And so all that's left for them to vote for is either people who created despair or those who are seeking to exploit it. And we have to actually acknowledge it and then address it and then ensure that it never happens again.
Before you go, really, really quick, working with other progressives, do you guys, because there's ranked choice voting, we know New Yorkers kind of fumbled the ball last time, and there was a lot of things that happened, but Eric Adams ended up being, the thing that rose to the top there. Are you going public with any plans to campaign with others? Do you suggest to even rank Cuomo or Eric Adams? Just explain this if you can.
Yes, absolutely. I'm telling New Yorkers to dream, which is to don't rank Eric or Andrew for mayor. And I'm telling them that because we are a city of 8.5 million people, yet Eric Adams became the mayor by virtue of 7,000 votes in 2021. And that is partially a result of the fact that only 40% of New Yorkers who did vote ranked all 5 candidates on their ballot. And so by the final round, there were so many New Yorkers who had cast votes whose opinions weren't actually being reflected in that choice. And so I'm telling people who support our campaign, fill out your 5 options. Don't include either disgraced executive on it. And I'm committed to making a cross endorsement as well to tell people how to fill it out and with whom towards the end of this race, but well before Election Day.
New York State Representative Zohran Mamdani, thanks so much for joining us. We kept you a minute extra, but hopefully you don't mind. He's running to be New York's next mayor. And he was here on Zeteo. Thank you, Zohran. Good luck.
Yes, he was.
Thank you so much for having me.
We knew him first. That's what we want to say. And Alex, by the way, in the comments.
By Mel. Thank you, Mel and Francesca, for Zohran. He was supposed to be on last week. We're glad he got on. It's still encouraging. He's going up against that behemoth, Francesca, but to come out of nowhere and be at number 2, that's something.
Yeah, and Alex in the comments, by the way, already volunteered with him and hopes to do more. So just shout out to you. I really think in this time, working on a campaign like this can give someone just a good outlet. You gotta metabolize the rage. Going to Tesla dealerships, that's fun, but putting your energy towards a candidacy or a campaign that really has legs, I think, can give us some of the hope that we need right now.
And most importantly, Francesca, your jacket is fire.
Oh, thank you very much. This is I last wore this on MSNBC all those years ago. Also, it's looking like in Florida, the special House election to replace Matt Gaetz. Jimmy Patronis has won, it seems, 57% of the vote, but 42% for the Democrat, Gay Valamont.
How much was for the Republican?
57, 96. Yeah. 26,000 votes more, 25,000 votes more. Far.
I expected as much. It's Florida, folks.
But Florida.
The fact that they're chipping away, that to me is important. You chip away, you don't cede the ground. That's how Republicans did it in these formerly blue states. Don't chip the ground. I'm glad he ran that race. They were nervous about it, which is why poor Elise Stefanik is no longer the ambassador to the UN. Oh no, Elise. Oh no, she has to come back to New York after burning all her bridges because Republicans are terrified of losing their very slim House majority. So this is why you got to keep chipping away, crack after crack after crack.
Yeah, and also Randy Fine, I think, who is replacing Michael Waltz, who honestly may be losing his job at some point, but Trump is really asleep at the wheel here. He has won his race as well, again, beating the Democrat Josh Wheel. So that's just a little bit of an update. But Wajahat, I'm going to call your full name now. Every week we have a person who just demonstrates that it's so easy to kiss the ring in this moment. It's so easy to capitulate to the right. It's so easy to just, pull a Marco Rubio, pull a Ted Cruz. These are the OG Reeks. We call it Reek of the Week based on a Game of Thrones character. And who is your Reek this week?
There can be only one Reek, even though there are many Reeks. And this week's Reek is my Reek. But in honor of Eid, everyone, Eid Mubarak. We celebrate on Sunday. Some people celebrate on Monday. I am generous. And in the spirit of Eid, I'm not giving you one Reek. I'm going to give you two Reeks. And the two Reeks for this week's Reek of the Week are JD and Usha Vance. And the reason why it's JD and Usha Vance is because they're the couple that made Greenland colder too soon. JD Vance, folks, the reason why he was my first Reek of the Week was earlier this week, well, literally yesterday, Donald Trump talked about running for president the third time. Wasn't joking, like we said he wasn't joking. And his proposal is that JD's going to run for president, and then I'll be his vice president. JD will win. And then JD will just step down and give it to me.
And then I'll eat him.
And and so the fact that he's openly saying this about JD, already Reekish. But the reason why I chose JD and Usha, because they both volunteered to make fools of themselves to go to Greenland, which, by the way, U.S. does not control. And they had an extremely chilly reception. Here's a clip.
Hey guys, it's JD Vance, the vice president. And there was so much excitement around Usha's visit to Greenland this Friday that I decided that I didn't want her to have all that fun by herself. And so I'm going to join her. So we're going to check out how things are going there. And I say that speaking for President Trump, we want to reinvigorate the security of the people of Greenland because we think it's important to protecting the security of the entire world.
They were so excited to go to Greenland and so excited to meet these folks that the MAGA administration knocked on doors, literally went from door to door, begging people, would you like to meet JD and Usha Vance? And literally they found zero people in Greenland wanted to meet and or be seen next to Usha and JD Vance. And this is how JD Vance decided to greet the people of Greenland, who, by the way, have made it very clear. We're really happy with the way things are and with our sovereignty and with Denmark. We don't want you to control us.
That's what this is about. There is no amount of bullying, no amount of obfuscating, no amount of confusing the issue. Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change. And because it hasn't changed, this is why President Trump's policy in Greenland is what it is.
Again, the people of Greenland, very happy with the status quo and with Denmark. And of course, our allies, where our former allies, had to respond. Here's the Danish foreign minister, because we live in the most ridiculous, painful timeline in the multiverse.
I have a message for our American friends and all others who are listening. Much is being said these days. Many accusations and many allegations have been made. And of course, we are open to criticism. But let me be completely honest. We do not appreciate the tone in which it's being delivered. This is not how you speak to your close allies. And I still consider Denmark and the United States to be close allies.
We don't
Francesca
like
has some stats. Francesca has some stats, but before she gives you these stats, underreported story, in a speech in Russia, Putin said he would get Poland, Belarus, Ukraine, and Trump would get Panama, Canada, and Greenland.
What are we playing Risk here? Like, what is this? We're just recarving up the world again. We're recolonizing places or colonizing them for the first time. This is so ridiculous and also speaks to, I think, Waj, what we've talked about, which is what happens when authoritarians rule the world, right? It is not that they are isolationists. No, they're only isolationists in name only. They're only nativists when it comes to, being anti-immigrant and wherever they are. But when it comes to actually bullying their neighbors or trying to take over land that's not yours, they love that stuff. They're total hawks. They want spheres of influence, right? They want to, again, collect them like monopoly pieces here. And they're doing just that. And so Putin's saying, yeah, I'm going to collect these guys and you're going to collect those guys. And, everything's going to be hunky-dory until in 50 years when we finally decide.
Because what's common to us isn't common to other people. There's a reason here. Always remember the grift.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying, just like eventually authoritarians go to war on one another. Haven't we all read 1984? But yes, there are critical raw materials in Greenland. A 2023 survey showed that 25 of 34 minerals deemed critical by the European Commission were found there. Critical in giving you a new telephone. Who knows? Vance argued that the U.S. needs more military presence in Greenland, but Denmark has actually allocated more money to the defense of Greenland, probably because of all this chest thumping from the United States. Guys, don't get it twisted. That's what this is. Yeah. It's pure chest thumping. But 14.6 billion Danish kroner, or $2 billion, was committed by the Danes to Arctic security, naval vessels, long-range drones, satellites. Again, the U.S. and Denmark are both part of NATO, so it's a little bit awkward, but also
allegedly allies, allegedly.
But and also speaking to sort of Putin's desires, and to JD Vance's desires, who somehow despises all of Europe and anyone who isn't like an illiberal democracy, loves Hungary. This is their dream come true. Oh, now we're going to have 2 NATO allies going to war with one another, or one NATO ally trying to bully the other. No one asked for this. This won't even make it's not like there's chickens and they're like, you know what? There's really cheap eggs in Greenland. We're going to get them. The eggs are green themselves. There's no point to this except for.
I heard there's green eggs and ham. Yes, I heard. I am. What? Huh? Dr. Seuss looking to illegal alien. Deport them. Get the eggs. This only helps the rich. This only helps the 1%.
Because it's not like it's going to be like, oh, and then we're going to nationalize the resources of Greenland to give every American, a $25 check. No, a free iPhone. No, not even that. Even if you were looking at it from that crass, awful angle. No, it's just going to benefit either Trump, one of his, we're going to give Greenland to Eric,
Hypno,
it's
you're
wild.
Right. Teal wants Greenland for his tech oligarchy island. It's the 1%. It's the broligarchy. It's like the movie Don't Look Up, where the billionaire wants to mine the comet for minerals. The comet ends up blowing up the Earth.
Waiting on. I did do a show all about that. I just want to explain that, they're looking at Greenland for a tech dystopia where it's only guys who eat a bunch of Soylent in the morning, and then hot chicks, only hot chicks. It's gonna be kind of a task to get the hot chicks on Greenland, especially because Amendment 1 of the Constitution is we don't practice consent, but we'll get them. Yes, go to the headlines, please. Save me.
No, there you go. You got it.
Visiting Greenland, Vance finds weather and reception chilly. Love it, New York Times. The Guardian, the Observer view on JD Vance spurned in Greenland and humiliated at home. The vice president should resign. Economic Times, no thank you. No one wants to talk to Usha Vance, at least not in Greenland. Not over here either. Who wants to talk to Usha Vance? I don't. I have a more interesting conversation with ChatGPT than Usha Vance. I'm not convinced that Usha isn't ChatGPT.
Can I ask you one quick question, Francesca, before we go to this race that we're all keeping our eyes on, the Wisconsin Supreme Court race? I've always been offended when people make Melania Trump out to be this poor victim who just got swept up and is just going along with it. And the same thing initially, if you notice, the same headlines with poor Usha. She's an intelligent, educated person. She's just going along with it. No, Melania Trump was complicit. She promoted the birther conspiracy theory. She's the one who said, I don't care, do you? She's been all in on it. No one put a gun to Usha's head and said she had to go to Greenland and make this belligerent response to our allies. She chose to do it. No one said she had to sit around and say nothing as JD Vance made excuses for the racist, literally the anti-Indian comments made by the Doge member. And then JD Vance came out and said, give this young man a chance. He's 25 years old. He's the guy who said, I want to normalize Indian hate. He's married to an Indian. He has brown kids. My take on this is she's as complicit as him. And we should not sit there and see her as some damsel in distress.
No, I agree with you. I just this is also a week, and I talked about this on my show of, Elon Musk's baby mama saying that he doesn't pay her enough in child support. She's selling her Tesla. He won't return her calls. He's now saying, oh, that's not even my kid. Andrew Tate, alleged sex trafficker, has another rape allegation against him, this time just this month. Again, there are many women who prop up these misogynists who stand by them and then get burned, and they are victims, and good on the people speaking out. To their credit, right? Ashley St. Clair and this woman, who was, assaulted by Andrew Tate spoke out. But I'm just like, I'm waiting for Republican women to wake the F up. Do you know what I mean? I've been waiting. It's like longer than I've been waiting for like centrists to just start a new party that are like, we love corporate, like I just, don't you see, this is like the lowest number of women, I believe, in Congress on the Republican side since women were allowed to hold office. Like, don't you see, they don't want you ever to speak your mind. They don't care that you're just a prop. And yet we're told that Tim Walz and his wife's relationship is super weird, but Melania swatting away Donald Trump's hand and not wanting to even live in DC is like, that's a normal, healthy relationship, everybody.
Or not even sleeping in the same bed, or being perfectly fine that he has allegedly cheated on every single one of his wives, or the fact that we never see her next to him, or the fact we never really saw him raise his son Barron, or the fact, and on and on and on, and the fact that he actually spends more time with Elon Musk's kid than his own kids. All this is normal, and from the pro-family, pro-Christian right wing, which really wants to control women's bodies, especially in Wisconsin. You like that segue, Francesca?
Great segue.
You like that?
This is the first major political test of Donald Trump's so-called mandate with not even 50% of the vote, as he returns to the White House again. What are we, 72 days strong? It's Wisconsin and the Supreme Court there, a state that Trump narrowly flipped, a state where Elon Musk and affiliated PACs and many others, Elon and his affiliated PACs have donated $20 million into this race. In total, I believe it's $90 million has been poured into advertising, canvassing, and other expenses. That's according to the Brennan Center. This campaign is between Republican favorite, again, these are justices, so not supposed to be partisan, but we know they are, Brad Schimel, against Susan Crawford, who used to be a private attorney and also represented Planned Parenthood, backs abortion rights. Schimel has a record of opposing abortion, but he says he'll respect the will of Wisconsinites. Sure. Now, if Crawford wins, the liberals would retain a 4-3 majority on the court. Schimel would flip the court to conservatives. And Trump yesterday, he's really up on the race. So I know we're going to have Ari Berman in a little bit on to explain the importance of this, but I feel like Donald Trump kind of has it. So let me just play his analysis.
Yeah, there's a big race, and I hope you get out and vote for the Republican. The woman is a radical left lunatic, and let's see who wins, but the woman will be very bad.
Woman bad, man good. It's pretty much the analysis of our last few presidential elections. Woman bad, man good, everything's fine. Again,
TV.
Again, it's not funny. Obviously, this is the second time Elon Musk has tried to buy an election. We'll see if it works yet again. He was awarding $1 million to 2 Wisconsin voters who allegedly won sweepstakes. Watch, there's a little bit more to this than that. But here was Elon. Why is the cheese smaller than his head?
Thanks for coming. What do you think of my hat?
Do you feel better, Francesca?
I feel great. I feel like he really gets Wisconsinites and like what they're going through in their lives because he wore a cheese hat.
We are going to break this all down with Mother Jones senior reporter Ari Berman. Ari's here. Folks, if you haven't been reading Ari, he's been on the story for months. He's been covering this race. Ari, we're going to talk about Elon Musk, the checks, the cheese head, Schimmel, the views. But I want to set the stage here because, as Francesca said, millions of dollars have been poured into this race to control the Supreme Court, right? And a lot of Americans might be wondering, well, why is this the most expensive race of its type, right? Can you set the ground for why this race in particular is a test case for Republicans and their national plan?
Yeah, well, hey guys, and happy election day on April 1st, 2025.
Right? Polls just closed?
Polls have closed. The fun never ends. Can't make this up that it's actually on April Fool's Day. This whole election has felt like one big April Fool's joke with the way that it's gone down. But I think there's a few different reasons why it's so important. One is that the Wisconsin Supreme Court is in and of itself important because it's the top court in one of the closest swing states in the country. It decides really important issues like abortion, voting rights, redistricting. This was a court, remember, that came one vote short of overturning the 2020 election. So Trump got closer in Wisconsin to overturning the election than any other swing state. And it was really one conservative judge who joined with the liberals in that case, but who was not a reliable vote otherwise. And so when progressives won control of the state in 2023, in control of the court, it was really, really important. They were able to strike down the gerrymandered maps that locked in Republican power at the state level for so many years. And what Musk has said is he is concerned that if progressives maintain control of the court, there will be a new lawsuit that is filed against the congressional redistricting maps, which currently have a 6-2 Republican advantage in a 50-50 state. And Musk fears that that will lead Democrats to pick up 1 or 2 seats in Congress, which could lead to Dems controlling Congress, at least the House. And they would finally be able to hopefully do something about Musk taking a wrecking ball to the federal government. So this is important, I think, for the state political reasons, for the national political reasons, and then just the fact that it's the clearest referendum on Musk in particular, and by extension Trump, that we've had since November. And it's going to tell us a lot about the political mood in one of the most important swing states in the country, and whether oligarchy just becomes insurmountable or whether there's a plan to actually defeat it that can work.
Before we continue, Ari, do you mind turning down your output? So we can just mute you. He's fine. Because we're hearing an echo. Don't worry, we're not live. We're totally live. You're fine. If it's cool. I also wanted to put out there that Elon has a case before the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Tesla's not allowed to both run dealerships and build a manufacturing plant in Wisconsin because I believe of antitrust, and that is a line. He wants to be able to skirt that law. So I also wanted to maybe bring that in. Maybe we could also go to the, we kind of learned more about the people. I mean, maybe you can just explain how was the $1 million checks to these sweepstakes winners? Why was that not stopped? And we actually now know that the check winners were not just average people, but one was associated with college Republicans, and another who was a graphic designer but works for Bellmark Inc., which has strong ties to many Republican donors. Bellmark was founded by Bruce Bell, a major Republican donor, both personally and through organizations he controls. According to the Federal Election Commission and Wisconsin Campaign Finance, Bell contributed $7,500 to Scheimel's campaign, but has contributed tens of thousands of dollars to the Trump campaign. So maybe not so random after all.
Am I still echoing, by the way?
No, it was just us who are echoing. You're fine. It's okay.
Okay, all right.
We'll shut up.
Good to know. So to your first question, which I've remembered it. Sorry, it's been a long day and it's going to be an even longer night. Tesla, you're right. Musk is suing Wisconsin right now because Wisconsin has a law that prevents Tesla or any other company from directly selling its cars to consumers. So Tesla has to go through dealerships. There, in fact, are quite a lot of dealerships in Wisconsin, Tesla dealerships I saw with brand new Cybertrucks, but he wants to sell them directly to consumers. So there's self-interest here too. The way that Ben Wickler, the chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, described to me was it's a democracy crisis layered on top of plain old-fashioned corruption, which I think basically just describes the Trump era with everything that we're facing right now. In terms of the money, so basically what Musk is saying is that he is handing out these checks to people who signed his PAC's petition, not people who actually voted. Although he did say for quite a long time on Friday that he was going to Wisconsin to give them to people who voted, which was very clearly in violation of Wisconsin law. He's basically gotten around the law by giving it to people through what is considered protected speech. Now, I personally think the courts have to take a closer look at this because it's done in the whole context of electioneering. So whether or not you're paying someone to sign a petition, it's not like a petition at a farmer's market. Like this is a PAC that is engaged in direct activity on behalf of a candidate, and whether it's actually illegal, it's so morally and ethically questionable. This was something that nobody had done. We should point this out. Nobody had done this before Elon Musk. Even Donald Trump, who would probably stoop to any kind of low to win an election, didn't do this kind of thing before Elon Musk came around. So I'm very concerned that this election could just come down to outright vote buying. That Democrats are trying to make a substantive argument here, which is vote for abortion rights, vote for voting rights, vote against oligarchy, all of these things. And Musk is just saying, I'm just going to give you money. And like the crassest human instinct is usually just to take the money. And so I'm concerned about that. I mean, this is reminiscent, Wajahat, of stuff that happens, in, not your neck of the woods, but I'm sure your family and your parents and your grandparents' neck of the woods, right? I mean, this is not the kind of thing we associate with a functioning, stable democracy.
No, you're right. I'll tell you a story that I shared yesterday on Blue Sky. A cousin of mine, I said, hey, so when are you going to come to America? He's in Pakistan, Karachi. And he goes, I just canceled my flight because, man, things are really crazy in America. He's in Karachi, Pakistan. All right. And my family, Pakistan has so many challenges, like so many countries, right? This type of feudal system, the rich, the 1%, no middle class, naked corruption. Like everybody knows this is how business happens here, right? The rich people who don't have a job somehow have all the properties and get the contracts. But you're not, it happens everywhere, but you don't see it so nakedly, so openly, so shamelessly in America. And the fact that it's happening in Wisconsin, Ari, you've been following these two judges, and I don't think people really know how extreme Brad Schimmel is. He's not just your typical right-wing conservative judge. There's gonna be real life implications if this man wins. We're gonna find out in the next hour or so. Talk to us about what will happen to Wisconsinites, their health care, specifically to women, if this man wins and this conservative majority takes over the Supreme Court.
Brad Schimmel has run an extremely MAGA campaign, even by the standards of a politician, let alone a judge. He has basically said he sees nothing wrong with the 1849 abortion ban in Wisconsin. Many Republicans won't even go that far right now. He has said he wants to be part of a support network for Trump. He was campaigning over the weekend in a Make America Great Again hat. He attended Trump's inauguration. He said the January 6th insurrectionists didn't receive fair trials. He defended Trump's pardons of them. He begged Trump for an endorsement. He did a fawning town hall with Elon Musk. This is very, very unusual for a judge to do. I mean, I spent time with Susan Crawford, the liberal candidate. She is distancing herself from the political parties. She's not running to be Barack Obama or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Cory Booker, rubber stamp. She's saying, I want to be a fair and impartial judge. And I talked to her colleagues. They said, she's very smart. She's liberal, but she will rule against liberal causes if she believes that that's the best thing. She approaches this like a judge, right? Yes, a judge who's sympathetic to Planned Parenthood, a judge who defended voting rights. But first and foremost, she acts like a judge. Whereas Brad Schimmel acts like someone who's auditioning to be a Fox News host. And it's just very crazy that kind of thing could happen. Because remember, there's already 3 people on the Wisconsin Supreme Court that tried to overturn the 2020 election. And I would argue
they're still there. I mean,
they're still there.
How long do these appointments last again?
At least 2 of them are still there. They last for 10 years, I think.
Got it.
So there's also another reason why this is extremely important, which is if Susan Crawford wins this race, there's a progressive majority on the court through 2028. And not only that, but the next 2 elections are conservatives that have to run again. So this could conceivably be a larger progressive majority, not just going into the next presidential election, in which you can sure as hell bet they're going to be weighing in on a lot of contested issues, but also through the 2030 redistricting cycle. And I can't tell you how big of a role redistricting has played in Wisconsin. It has single-handedly enshrined Republican power in this state for 15 years. Every other election has flipped in Wisconsin except the state legislature because of gerrymandering. The legislature could finally change in 2026 because of these maps. But so you can't overstate the importance of this just to Wisconsin alone. But of course, the national significance of this are huge in terms of if you have a judge who took on Elon Musk and said very clearly, she said when she campaigns, I want to tell you about my opponent, Elon Musk.
Yeah.
If she does that, why can't every other Democrat in the country do this? Why can't this be a playbook they use everywhere else at a time when Democrats are trying to figure out, what do we do? What do we say? This can be the blueprint that they can use.
So has Susan Crawford done that, or has she refrained? Has she been, like you said, kind of running just as a judge?
She's done that. I mean, she's running as a judge who's running against Elon Musk, and she's basically running against the buying of the judiciary. And I think that's a very powerful message at a time when people see Musk doing a lot of unpopular things, when people see the Trump administration threatening to impeach federal judges, and they understand that checks and balances are extremely important right now because we don't have any checks and balances with Republicans in Washington by and large. There's no checks and balances in Congress. There's very little from the Supreme Court, except for here and there. They are the reason why Donald Trump was able to run again in the first place, I would argue, and be so successful. So a lot of the checks and balances are coming from the state level. And then they're going to come from not just governors and attorney general, they're going to come from state courts as well. And so I think she has run that message. You can see the message will be used more explicitly in partisan races. But I think this is going to tell us a lot. I think this is going to be an election that you could theoretically extrapolate to lots of other elections, whether it's governor's races, things like that in Virginia, or the congressional races in 2026. And, hopefully it will embolden the National Democratic Party to get a little bit more of a spine and do more resisting instead of appeasing, seeing that this actually worked in Wisconsin. And this is what Democratic voters want right now.
So my final question is based on just what you said. Let's end on a hopeful note and imagine that despite all the money, despite the extremely unethical, all right, I'm being very generous here, unethical, I would say immoral attempts to win or buy this election, that Schimmel, the conservative judge, loses, and there is a 4-3 Supreme Court majority in Wisconsin. What do you think will be the immediate impact both on Wisconsin and on a national level?
Well, I think they're going to strike down the 1849 abortion ban. They could do that anyway between now and whenever the next judge is seated. They're probably going to strike down a very controversial law that restricted collective bargaining rights for unions in Wisconsin to rebuild labor there. There probably will be a new challenge to the redistricting maps, which will be filed and eventually will reach the court. And then it could also make some Republicans a little more reluctant to back Elon Musk. Now, I'm not going to sit here and predict that they're suddenly going to break with Donald Trump, because we've heard that so many times and it doesn't happen. But Musk is a lot more unpopular than Trump. He's doing things that are the most unpopular things that Trump is doing. He doesn't have whatever charisma or bravado Trump has that, okay, we don't see it, but obviously some voters do. Musk doesn't have that. When he put the cheese head on, he just looked like an idiot. And so I think you could at least see vulnerable Republicans saying, maybe we don't want Musk coming to our state. Maybe we want his money, but we don't want to be so closely associated with him. Maybe Musk says, listen, all this money didn't work. I don't have to write these 7-level checks. I don't want to be too Pollyannish about what could happen here.
Sure.
But I definitely think that it will have somewhat of a stabilizing effect in terms of just the idea that money can come in and buy every single race with no resistance to it.
Yeah, 4% in Schimmel, 55%, and Susan Crawford, 45%. I wanted to ask you before you go, this week, obviously Trump again, and the administration is like, we're not ruling out a third term. Here's how it could go down. NBC and a lot of media is like, well, would you? Like, they're just kind of salivating at this headline that, he would either stay or run again. As we are grappling with the very real threat of authoritarianism, of a guy who like relishes and lauds and admires all these other, demagogues and people who've never left power, Xi Jinping, even though he hates China. How would that look? Not how would it look? It would look terrible, but what do you think is the American authoritarians' way to stay in power? Is it sham elections? Is it stealing elections? Is it quite literally what we were talking about, which is making sure courts, if there is anything contested, that they'll just, float your crazy Italy gate theory up to the top and rule against the voters? What are your thoughts on, 2028? I know it's so far away, but.
Well, I mean, I think to pull off outright authoritarianism, it would be all of the above. It would have to be a flood the zone strategy where every single thing becomes politicized in a way that would just keep the incumbent in power. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think Trump's going to be in a place at the end of his second term where people are going to necessarily want him to run again. But I think what I'm concerned about are the actions. One of the things that Trump did that didn't get a whole lot of attention is he issued this crazy executive order that gave him all this power over voting that he doesn't actually have. Right. And I think that's the kind of thing where you're going to see him try to do more and more of that. Usurp the other branches, take more and more power, and then try to rule by decree. He's already getting there. And then basically, when people try to stop him, he just says, okay, I'm just overriding it, right? Yeah. And that's how it would look, where it's not that he's at odds with the Constitution, it's that he doesn't even believe the Constitution applies to him. And he's argued it already, and that's why it's so alarming when he keeps doing all these unconstitutional things, because it sets a precedent for him to just ignore the Constitution outright. So that's what I'm most concerned about, is that the unconstitutional actions go unchecked or they're upheld by sympathetic actors. And therefore, Trump's just emboldened to go further and further and further. And that's why somebody needs to take a stand at some point. And I think the stand in many real ways begins tonight in Wisconsin.
Someone just told me, Waj, smile more. Why do you look so grim? I wasn't grim. It's sobering news, folks. I was just digesting it. I could sit there and be like a moron, but I was just like, the gravity of the situation. This election right now, folks, we're in real time. Only 4%, about 3.7% of the votes have come in. It's very early to tell. Schimmel's up 10 percentage points, but let's hope enough Wisconsinites realize what's at stake. Ari, you've done the work for months. You've been trying to inform people. You've connected the dots. Fantastic reporting at Mother Jones. As I always say, please shamelessly promote yourself to our audience, which is very, very much enjoying your expertise and giving you a lot of props right now.
Thank you. Well, you can read my work at motherjones.com. You can read my new book, Minority Rule, wherever books are sold. You can follow me at Blue Sky at Ari Berman, whatever the thing is after that. Even know. Maybe if Musk loses in Wisconsin, I'll go back on Twitter, but I'm taking a break right now. But just want to say I love you both. Love the work you're doing. Great to talk to you guys, and keep up the good fight.
Your check is in the mail, or if you're one of the young cool kids, I'll Venmo you. Maybe we'll Venmo you. Maybe
privately.
Send me money.
Privately. We love Ari. Ari's the best.
Ari's great.
Everyone make sure to read every single thing that he writes. He does it with such clarity. Minority Rule, the right-wing attack on the will of the people. I mean, that's what's crazy to me, Waj, before we move on to good stuff, is that our political system is already skewed in favor of the minority, right? It's like they already have the advantage, and that is how afraid they are of democracy. And so every time, yes, somebody gives me the like both parties are the same and this and that, and it's like, okay, if it didn't matter and if democracy were totally dead, why do they care so much about taking away our right to vote, about changing the playing field, about changing the rules? Why are they constantly focused on it? They wouldn't fight us so much if they didn't know that it has an impact. Right. To say nothing of how we're only a couple generations out of Jim Crow and people who are still alive who were not allowed to vote, as we now roll back the Civil Rights Act. But
because, Francesca, you made a good point, and it's something that, we always end on a note of hope, and I always ask you to give me good news. We have the numbers. We have the majority, folks, and they don't have the numbers. The analogy I gave as a kid who was bullied, an overweight kid who used to wear husky pants and was an ESL, the way the bully usually wins is the bully comes in with a few of his friends and makes an example out of someone. So he usually picks on the weakest kid, beats him up, says, give me your lunch money. The kid hands over the lunch money, and now that sends a warning to everyone else. You better get in line, because look what happened to him. So everyone else, even though they have the numbers, they're like, I don't want to get beat up. So divide and conquer. But what happens if those numbers, the majority, the bullied, actually banded together? 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, the bully and his friends would lose. But you need people to stand up, to organize. You need the majority to coalesce. You need a message. You need a leader. You need some spine in the fight, as Ari said. And we had some good news today, I would say, at least even when it comes to performance. Francesca, show us the good news of the day.
Well, you need people. Look, we have in the pre-show, we discussed how Senator Cory Booker hasn't always been, a shining example of leadership. Certainly someone who has taken a fair amount of super PAC money, real estate money, APAC money. But my God, he just now holds the record for the longest speech given on the Senate floor, outdoing, as you mentioned earlier, Strom Thurmond, who did it in opposition to the Civil Rights Act, which is just, imagine hating Black people that much. Like, imagine being so racist, you're going to soil yourself for 23 hours or whatever it is. That
24 hours. He did it for 24 hours in favor of segregation.
In favor of segregation. Anyway, the record was 24 hours and 18 minutes. What is our official record with Cory Booker, Senator Booker?
It was around 25 hours, right? Mel, if you could get us the exact number, I think it was 25 hours plus.
It's beautiful. And here's just a bit of what he had to say. Obviously, if you watch the whole thing, amazing.
And so I confess that I have been imperfect. I confess that I've been inadequate to the moment. I confess that the Democratic Party has made terrible mistakes that have given lane to this demagogue. I confess we all must look in the mirror and say we will do better. And it's not just defining ourselves what we're against. We, the next generation, as the baby boomers are leaving the stage, the last baby boomer president, we have to say that we're going to redeem the dream. We're going to dream America anew. We're going to start talking about bold things that don't divide people, that unite people. Bold things that excite the moral imagination of a country to do better, to go higher, that call us together. This is the time where new leaders in our country must emerge. I'm not talking about senators. I'm talking about citizens.
Look, some of you folks are rightfully cynical. I'm reading the comments at the, as Francesca led off. We're not the biggest fans of Booker and its track record. That being said, you welcome resistance when you can, especially as we've seen every institution bend the knee, law firm after law firm, ABC, CNN, elected officials. The fact Cory Booker did it, sure, it was probably performative, but that type of performance inspires and rallies people. And we saw a jolt of electricity within the base. That's not just Democrats, independents, people are opposed to Trump. And you compare that, Francesca, to what Schumer didn't do. And that's a type of fight. People like, as Ari said, a spine, a fight. We've mentioned it on the show. People just, even if your team loses, you want them to fight to the end, Francesca. At least give it your all. Because, folks, they're coming after innocent people, immigrants, fathers, brown folks, students, women. The coup is done. The authoritarian regime is here. And we need fighters. So that made me feel good, Francesca. And the fact that he broke the record made me feel good. And the fact that only 12% of the votes are in Wisconsin, folks, is going to be a long night. Go to sleep. But we were just told that Crawford has overtaken Schimmel.
Yep. 52.6% to Schimmel's 47.4%, who you said was Schimmel, I want to say, and it was not Schimmel. Then you said Schimmel. I just want to say this. I think, look, as we all face down and bear down authoritarianism, I think we can be cautious rather than only cynical. That we can, work with someone like Cory Booker, but remind him that it is also about defending Palestinian free speech or free speech about Palestine. And it is not okay to be called anti-Semitic. And it is not okay to take APAC money. Look, just because someone did doesn't mean they can't refuse it, and we have to make it politically unpopular to do things like taking, corporate PAC money and foreign lobbyist money. So this is our work ahead. No one was beyond redemption. You got Cory Booker saying, I confess I've erred, and maybe this party. I feel like that was his admission that like he shouldn't have voted for Marco Rubio, and to confirm him. But it's gonna call on all of us, I think, Waj, and even me. I'm sort of telling this to myself, like, let us not only be cynical about politicians, even though they have burned us and they burn us all the time, because we're going to need a lot of them to fight for
They're
us.
levers. They're tools, Francesca. I agree with you. And you got to push them. That's it. You got to push them. And in this day and age, you can't be absolutist. And look, the reason why Cory Booker did this, folks, going back to my original point, the people spoke up and they saw the favorability ratings and they saw the writing on the wall. And that's why now you're seeing a shift for the Cory Bookers and the Ro Khannas, who I think will be a guest next week. Senator Murphy's. You're seeing that spine, that fight, because they realize, oh, if I want to have this office, the people are demanding that I step up. So do not underestimate your voice. Do not underestimate your vote. So many people have fought for it. So many people have died for it. Hopefully, when we come back on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, we will have good news for you when it comes to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Again, please like this show. We went super long today because there was so much news, and we had this, we were waiting for the Wisconsin Supreme Court, the election results as they're dripping in. We had 2 guests. Folks, we have a small team. Our mighty producer, Mel, has a cold, a fever, but she still got it done today. Francesca has a baby. I have like 800 kids. It's independent media. But we don't bend the knee to Democrats, to Republicans, to kings or queens or emperors. We need your support. Please like the show. Please, as Francesca said at the top of the show, ring the bell. Every subscription goes a long way. Please share this. It'll be up in about 1 minute right after we wrap up our live show. It goes a long way. All those super chatters who gave us $1, $20, $5, $10, huge. Thank you so much. Please donate to Zeteo, and please support Francesca. Francesca, how can people support you, your work, your voice, and give you money?
Yeah, man. First of all, definitely support Zeteo. Just the incredible work, even that Prem Tucker, breaking stories about, students having their visas revoked overnight. Prem was on the front line of that reporting. So you're getting a lot for what you pay for, and you're supporting real journalism. So thank you, everyone who has. And maybe we'll continue the show beyond 100 days. But you can see me live in San Francisco on Wednesday, May 7th. I'll be doing stand-up with my husband, Matt Lieb, or on April 23rd in Pasadena at the Ice House. And get your tickets from JessicaFiorentini.com and listen to the Bituation Room wherever you get your podcasts.
And you always forget
frannyfio.substack.com. You can become a member and get my Wednesday bonus episodes, which I try to make a little more fun than other episodes.
And I write for the lefthook.substack.com, the Left Hook. No paywalls because, according to my dad, I'm an idiot and a terrible capitalist. But I believe everyone should have free information. I am like Blanche Dubois. I depend on the kindness of strangers. So if you can, give $4 a month, and that will help me feed one of my 800 children. And I also co-host Democracy-ish with Danielle Moody. But we will be back on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, for America Unhinged.
And until then, keep your screws real tight. Woo. Bye.